The courtroom was buzzing with murmurs as people settled into their seats. The heavy wooden doors creaked shut behind the last few spectators. Sitting at the front of the room was a little girl, no older than 10, with soft brown curls and large, frightened eyes. Her small hands clutched tightly onto the golden fur of the dog beside her. Max, her golden retriever, sat obediently, his warm brown eyes scanning the room, sensing Emily's unease. He wasn't just a pet. He was her protector. Her voice when she couldn't find words, her courage when the world felt too overwhelming. The judge, an older man with silver hair and kind yet serious eyes, adjusted his glasses as he glanced over the courtroom. His gaze softened when he saw Emily. "We are here today to discuss the custody of Emily Carter," the judge announced. He turned his attention toward the little girl. "Emily, I know this is a difficult day for you, but I want you to know that you are very brave." Emily swallowed hard, gripping Max's fur just a little tighter. She gave him a small pat, as if to reassure both of them. On the other side of the room, her father sat stiffly in a suit that looked too formal for someone who hadn't been around for most of Emily's life. His lawyer stood beside him, shuffling through papers. The opposing lawyer cleared his throat and addressed the judge. "Your Honor, my client, Mr. Carter, believes it is in Emily's best interest to live with him. A child should be with her biological parent." Emily's heart pounded. Her lawyer, a warm, kind woman named Mrs. Blake, leaned forward. "Your Honor, Emily has expressed deep concerns about living with Mr. Carter. Since her mother's passing, she has been living with Mrs. Jensen, a close family friend who has provided a safe and loving environment for her. Forcing her to leave that home would be traumatic." The judge nodded. He turned to Emily. "Emily, do you feel comfortable speaking today?" Emily hesitated. The words were there, but they felt stuck, tangled in her throat like a knot she couldn't undo. Her father's eyes bore into her. She could feel the weight of so many eyes watching her. The walls of the courtroom seemed to close in, and her hands trembled. Then, almost instinctively, she reached down and gave Max a small, almost invisible signal, a gentle squeeze of his paw. Max's ears perked up. He stood up slightly and placed his front paws gently on Emily's lap, nudging his head against her. He looked at her with those warm, knowing eyes, as if telling her, "I'm here. You're safe." The judge noticed and raised an eyebrow. "Is this dog trained to assist her in some way?" Emily's lawyer nodded. "Yes, Your Honor. Max was trained to help Emily with severe anxiety and selective mutism. In situations where she feels overwhelmed, he provides comfort and reassurance. He helps her communicate." The judge studied Max for a moment. "And that gesture just now, was that a form of communication?" Emily took a deep breath. Her voice was soft but steady. "It was a signal." The judge leaned in. "A signal?" Emily nodded, still holding on to Max. "It's our way of talking when I can't find my voice. When I squeeze his paw, it means I need him to remind me that I'm safe, that I can be brave." A murmur rippled through the courtroom. The judge turned back to her. "Emily, do you feel safe with Max?" Emily nodded. "Yes." "And do you feel safe living with your father?" Emily hesitated. Her fingers twitched against Max's fur. Max let out a soft whimper and pressed closer to her. Emily looked up, locking eyes with the judge. Her voice was clearer this time. "No," she said. "I don't." Silence fell over the courtroom. Her father's lawyer shifted uncomfortably. Mr. Carter's jaw tightened. The judge sighed deeply and leaned forward. "Emily, can you tell us why you don't feel safe?" Emily bit her lip. Her hands trembled slightly, but Max stayed close, grounding her. He "He doesn't really know me," she said finally. "He was never there. When I was sick, he didn't come. When I was scared, he wasn't there to hold my hand. But Mrs. Jensen was." Her voice wavered, but she kept going. "She reads to me at night. She knows how I like my pancakes cut into little squares. She lets Max sleep on my bed when I have nightmares. I feel safe with her." The judge listened carefully, his expression unreadable. Then he turned to Mr. Carter. "Mr. Carter, from what I've heard today, your daughter does not feel comfortable in your care. Custody is not about biology. It is about trust, security, and love. Emily has made it clear where she feels safe." Mr. Carter shifted in his seat. "She's just a child, Your Honor. She doesn't know what's best for her." The judge frowned. "On the contrary, I believe she knows exactly what is best for her." He took a deep breath. "I am ruling in favor of her staying with Mrs. Jensen." A wave of relief washed over Emily. Max wagged his tail, sensing the shift in energy. Mrs. Blake smiled and gently squeezed Emily's shoulder. The opposing lawyer sighed. Mr. Carter slumped in his chair, his expression unreadable. Emily turned to Max and threw her arms around him, whispering into his golden fur, "We did it, buddy." Max licked her cheek. The judge sat back for a moment, watching them. He had seen countless cases in his career, but this one would stay with him. A silent dog, a secret signal, and an unbreakable bond had just changed a little girl's life forever. And in the end, love had spoken louder than words.